A black and poor boy risks his own life to save a millionaire's daughter, but the request he makes after leaves him rich. What happens when a poor black boy saves the life of a millionaire's daughter? This question echoes through the streets of the Bronx, where Jamal's life intertwines with that of Emily, the young heiress of a financial empire. The following story reveals not only an act of courage, but also a request that challenges the expectations of a world divided between the rich and the poor. In New York, a city of contrasts, where gleaming skyscrapers rise above forgotten neighborhoods, Jamal, a 12-year-old boy, faces the harsh reality of poverty. He lives in the Bronx with his mother, Denise, a woman who spares no effort to support the family, working as a housekeeper. Jamal carries the deep pain of losing his father, Marcus, who was killed in a gang shooting, an event that shaped his promise to never be led astray by violence. In his leisure moments, he finds refuge on the basketball courts, dreaming of one day achieving a different life, far from the difficulties that surround him. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, in the opulent Upper East Side, resides Richard Morgan, a billionaire who believes his money can solve all problems. He takes great care of his daughter, Emily, who at 10 years old already bears the weight of the protection that her luxurious life imposed after the tragic death of her mother in an accident. Richard tries to shield Emily from any harm, but he cannot imagine that one day her life will be turned upside down. Fate, however, has other plans. One fateful day, Emily is kidnapped as she leaves school in a cruel plot by a gang seeking $1 million ransom. Taking the girl to a hideout in the South Bronx, they have no idea that Jamal, playing basketball on nearby streets, will become the unexpected hero of the situation. Hearing the cries for help, Jamal's curiosity and sense of justice drive him to investigate. What he discovers is the terrifying scene of a tied-up and frightened child, and guided by an unwavering instinct, he decides to act. With his cleverness and street knowledge, Jamal devises a daring plan to free Emily. He distracts the kidnappers, manages to free her, and together they flee through the alleys of the Bronx with the criminals on their tail. Jamal uses his experience and survival instinct to evade the criminals, and finally gets Emily safely to the nearest police station. Richard's gratitude upon reuniting with his daughter is immeasurable. A poor and unknown boy had saved his daughter, and he is determined to reward him. When Richard offers a generous reward, Jamal surprises him by asking for something completely different, a better job for his mother and help to study at a quality school. This unexpected request makes Richard reflect on his own beliefs and the true meaning of helping someone. The rescue changes the lives of everyone involved. Jamal starts attending a private school, but soon realizes that racism and class inequalities are difficult barriers to overcome. He faces prejudice, but his determination to achieve a quality education is stronger. Denise, his mother, becomes a housekeeper in the Morgan home, but faces her own difficulties in dealing with the disparity between the lives they lead and the reality she knows. Richard, impacted by Jamal's bravery, begins to get involved in social causes, fighting against the injustices he has ignored for so long. Meanwhile, the friendship between Emily and Jamal strengthens, and together they learn valuable lessons about empathy, perseverance, and the true worth of people, regardless of their circumstances. The narrative culminates in a charity event organized by Richard, where Jamal gives a touching speech, reminding everyone of the importance of providing equal opportunities for all young people. This message of hope and solidarity demonstrates that real change begins with small acts of kindness, uniting worlds that seemed irreconcilable. Jamal was in his new school, a place that seemed so different from what he was used to. The walls were painted a pristine white, the classrooms were equipped with modern technology, and more importantly, the students seemed to have a confidence that he had not yet encountered. However, he did not let himself be shaken. The memory of Emily motivated him, and he knew he had a responsibility not only to himself, but also to his mother, Denise, who now worked in the Morgan home. But the reality of the school would soon become a test of his inner strength. The first weeks were marked by looks of disdain and whispers in the classrooms. Some students made jokes about his background, and Jamal felt the weight of prejudice in every interaction. During a physical education class, when he stood out playing basketball, a group of boys laughed, saying he was just trying to be something he was not. That hurt him more than he would like to admit. He began to question whether he really belonged in that place. Outside the school, Denise's life was also full of challenges. Although she was grateful to have a job in the Morgan home, she constantly felt the gaze of those around her. Her co-workers, some of whom were also employed by the wealthy family, treated her with disdain as if she were inferior. Every day, she remembered the hardships she faced raising Jamal alone, and the idea that she could now be in the same house as those living in a bubble of wealth left her distressed. She wanted to give Jamal a better life, but the pressure of her new reality was becoming difficult to bear. Meanwhile, Richard Morgan, Emily's father, was battling his own demons. He was determined to change his life after his daughter's kidnapping, but the transition was not easy. He grappled with the guilt of having been so immersed in his work that he failed to recognize the dangers surrounding his daughter. Richard began to question whether his wealth really mattered, or if he was simply building a barrier between himself and the real world. He wanted to help Jamal, but he didn't know how. The idea that he had the power to make a difference weighed heavily on his shoulders. Before we continue with this gripping story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories, and let us know in the comments which city you are watching this video from. The friendship between Jamal and Emily, although strong, also faced challenges. Emily, who had been sheltered from many harsh realities, couldn't fully understand the difficulties Jamal faced daily. She tried to support him, but often her attempts were misinterpreted. One day during a break, Emily made an innocent comment about how she loved the new school and how she felt she could do anything she wanted. Jamal, frustrated and hurt, responded that not everyone was as lucky. He felt a rage he couldn't control, and the words came out before he could think. Those words cut like a knife, and Jamal walked away, feeling the weight of his own frustration. Emily was frozen, unsure how to respond, and the distance between them seemed to grow. Over time, Jamal realized that school wouldn't be the only place where he would face challenges. He began to notice changes in his behavior and performance. Although he was determined to study and work hard, the pressure to fit in and be accepted left him exhausted. He found himself struggling against the urge to give up, wondering what, after all, was worth fighting for. Each day he remembered his father and his promise not to be swayed by violence, but frustration and pain made him question that determination. Meanwhile, tensions rose in the Morgan household. The relationship between Richard and Denise, although initially friendly, began to complicate. Richard, trying to redeem himself, frequently asked questions about Denise's life, but in some of his attempts to connect, he came off more as an intruder than a friend. Denise, in turn, felt torn between gratitude for her job and the need to protect herself from a world that seemed to look down on her origins. The difficulties that Jamal and Denise faced at school and work became a reflection of the social barriers that existed between them and the Morgans. The friendship between Jamal and Emily was at stake, and Denise's struggle to adapt to the new reality made her question whether she could truly offer Jamal the life he deserved. The world that had opened up for them was filled with promises, but also challenges that tested their strength, courage, and determination. Amid all this, Jamal began to realize that the real challenge wasn't just the fight against prejudice or financial difficulties. The biggest challenge was facing his own fears and insecurities, and that required a strength he wasn't sure he possessed. The life lessons he had learned in the Bronx now needed to be applied in a world that felt so distant and different, and he found himself on a path of self-discovery that could change not only his life, but also the lives of those around him. Jamal felt that the weight of the world was on his shoulders. With each passing day, he found himself fighting harder against prejudice and loneliness. The laughter and whispers that followed him in the hallways became increasingly deafening. He tried to focus on his classes, but his mind was filled with doubts. Did he really belong in that school? Was he capable of overcoming the challenges he faced? However, frustration wasn't the only thing consuming him. During a math class, when a teacher praised his performance, Jamal felt a small spark of hope, but immediately, that hope was overshadowed by a dark thought. What if this doesn't last? What if I fail? He remembered the conversation he had with Emily and how her words sounded like a cry of desperation. It hurt him, and the guilt of having pushed her away only increased his anguish. Meanwhile, Denise's situation became unbearable. She worked hard in the Morgan household, but the disrespect from some employees left her exhausted. One day, while organizing the pantry, she overheard a conversation between two maids talking about her. One of them said, "She thinks she's one of us, but look where she comes from," laughing. Denise felt a knot in her stomach. The words stung her like a knife, and she wondered if she could really give Jamal the life he deserved. Life at home was not easy either. Jamal, who used to spend hours talking to his mother about everything, began to shut down. He didn't want Denise to see his suffering. He loved her and didn't want her to worry more than she already was. This caused them to drift apart, and Jamal's loneliness grew. One night, he sat in the dark, thinking about how he had distanced himself from Emily and how everything felt so confusing. He wanted to find a way to reconnect, but he didn't know how. The desire to fit in and succeed at school became an unbearable pressure. Jamal decided to try out for the basketball team, believing it might help him make friends. But during his first practice, he felt out of place. The other players were fast and skilled, and he couldn't keep up. When one of the most popular kids, Kyle, made a joke about his lack of skill, Jamal felt the ground open up beneath his feet. He remembered what he had promised himself, and for a moment, he was tempted to give up. Meanwhile, Richard Morgan was struggling with his own challenges. Guilt haunted him, and he was trying to be a good father to Emily. But his image of an ideal father was in conflict with his desire to help Jamal. He started attending parent meetings at school, where he heard stories from other students facing difficulties as well. This made him realize that Jamal's life was much more complex than he had imagined. Richard began to wonder if he could do more than just offer financial help. The meetings between Richard and Denise were becoming increasingly tense. They tried to be friendly, but the difference in their realities separated them. In one conversation, Denise expressed her desire for Jamal to have better opportunities, but Richard, unsure of how to react, ended up defending himself. "I just want to help, but you need to understand that it's not easy for me either," he said, unaware of the impact of his words. Denise fell silent, feeling that he did not understand what she really wanted, respect and acknowledgement of her struggle. The tensions between Jamal and Emily also continued. Emily, worried about her friend, tried to reach out to him, but he pushed her away. On a particularly difficult day, she decided to confront him. "Jamal, I just want to understand. You don't have to go through this alone." But this only made Jamal feel more isolated. He shouted, "You can't understand, Emily. You live in a different world." Tears streamed down her face as she walked away, and Jamal felt a tightness in his heart. He didn't want to hurt her, but the pain was becoming unbearable. That night, alone in his room, Jamal reflected on what was happening. He realized he needed to face his fears. His mother's words echoed in his mind. "You are stronger than you think." He decided he couldn't let prejudice and loneliness define him. Jamal decided to take a step forward, not just for himself, but also for his mother and Emily. He knew that the real struggle was finding a way to connect with those he loved, even if it meant facing his own weaknesses. The journey was far from easy, but Jamal was determined to face the challenges life threw at him. He couldn't change the past, but he could shape his future, and that was what really mattered. On an ordinary day, as the sun slowly set, painting the sky orange and pink, Jamal decided it was time to confront his fears. He remembered the math class where the teacher had praised him, and that spark of hope returned to his mind. The desire to feel accepted and empowered drove him to go to basketball practice once again. But he didn't expect that day to be different. Upon arriving at the gym, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The team was preparing for a friendly match against a rival school, and the coach was nervous. Jamal joined a group of players discussing game tactics. He noticed that although the others were more experienced, there was a sense of camaraderie in the air. He sat on the sidelines observing, trying to focus and feel part of the team. However, insecurity still haunted him. During warm-ups, one of the players, Lucas, who had once laughed at Jamal, made a comment that left everyone silent. "Hey Jamal, are you really going to play? Wouldn't it be better for you just to watch?" The laughter that followed made Jamal's heart sink, and he felt small and insignificant. He almost turned to leave, but something stopped him. He remembered his mother's words, "You are stronger than you think." With effort, he held his ground, deciding he wouldn't let that moment bring him down. The practice continued, and when it was time for a scrimmage, Jamal was put on the court. Nervousness took over him, but he took a deep breath, determined to prove his worth. However, he soon realized he was struggling to keep up with the frenetic pace of the game. When he had the ball in his hands, he hesitated. The noise of the fans and the shouts of his teammates seemed deafening. He passed the ball to a teammate, but the play didn't flow as it should. The opposing team quickly regained possession. Frustration consumed him. Jamal realized he was far from being the player he dreamed of being. When practice ended, he felt more defeated than ever. The feeling of failure accompanied him as he walked away from the gym, the echoes of his teammates' laughter still resonating in his mind. That night, as he struggled to sleep, Jamal received an unexpected message from Emily. She said she wanted to meet with him, that she needed to talk. Hesitant but intrigued, he agreed. When they met in a small park near the school, the tension in the air was palpable. He looked worried, racing. "Jamal, I noticed you're pulling away from everyone. I'm worried about you," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly. Jamal hesitated, fighting against the emotions that were overwhelming him. I'm just, it's hard, and I don't know if I'm good enough." Emily stepped forward, her eyes shining with determination. "You are more than enough. Don't let what others think define who you are. You have a big heart and incredible talent. I've seen that in you." Her words hit him like lightning. A wave of emotion enveloped him, and he felt tears start to slip down his face. But what if I fail? What if I never become who I want to be? Failing is part of the journey. No one gets everything right all at once. The important thing is to keep trying and allow yourself to be vulnerable, she replied sincerely. Jamal looked into Emily's eyes and for the first time in a long time felt a true connection. The conversation flowed, and little by little, the barriers he had built began to crumble. At that moment, a new understanding took hold of him. Jamal realized that true success was not about being perfect or fitting into a mold, but about allowing himself to be human, with flaws and fears. He understood that he needed to be honest with himself and with those who cared about him. When he said goodbye to Emily that night, he felt that a new light had been ignited inside him. He didn't have all the answers, but he was willing to face his challenges. Jamal realized that the journey of self-discovery was just beginning, and that each step, even the hardest ones, brought him closer to who he truly was. With this new perspective, he knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to face it. And in doing so, he also remembered one important thing. He was not alone in this struggle. The next morning, Jamal woke up with a mix of anxiety and hope. The sun was shining through the window, illuminating his room and bringing a new energy. He looked in the mirror and for the first time saw a spark in his eyes that he hadn't noticed before. Emily's words echoed in his mind. Failing is part of the journey. This idea settled in his heart, and he decided he would not let fear control him. However, upon arriving at school, Jamal soon realized that the journey would not be that simple. The glances from his peers, some muffled laughter and whispers made his stomach drop. He took a deep breath and tried to ignore it, but insecurity still lingered. During recess, while chatting with some friends, Lucas approached again. "So, Jamal, ready for another show of errors in the next game?" The provocation was clear, and Jamal felt the blood boil in his veins. But instead of letting anger take over, he remembered what Emily had told him. With determination, Jamal looked at Lucas and with a firm voice replied, "I'm here to learn and improve. If you can't see that, the problem is yours." The words came out of his mouth like a relief. The looks around him changed, and some classmates seemed to admire his courage. Jamal realized that by standing up for himself, he was doing more than just protecting himself. He was affirming his own identity. The following weeks were a true test. Jamal began to dedicate himself even more to practice. He spent hours on the court, practicing shots and dribbling, trying to keep up with his peers. However, frustrations still arose. In one practice, he missed a crucial shot during a scrimmage. The ball ricocheted off the backboard and missed, and the sound of failure echoed deeply in his mind. Instantly, he felt the weight of disappointment. But instead of letting it get him down, Jamal took a deep breath and remembered that each mistake was a learning opportunity. After practice, he sat on the bench, exhausted, and with his mind full of thoughts. While watching the others play, Emily approached. "Hey, you're doing really well, you know," she said, sitting down beside him. Jamal looked at her, still a bit unsure. "I made a mistake today and it frustrated me. It feels like I'll never be able to keep up." Emily smiled, her expression full of understanding. "Everyone makes mistakes, Jamal. What matters is how you react to those mistakes. You're putting in the effort, and that's already a big victory." Her words brought some comfort, but Jamal knew the road would still be long. He needed to learn to handle the pressure of being a player while also facing the emotional challenges that arose. As time went on, he began to open up more to other team members. He formed an unexpected friendship with one of the more experienced players, Raphael, who encouraged him during practices. Raphael would share his own battles in basketball, how he had also faced difficulties and insecurities. "The important thing is to never give up. We have all been rookies at some point," he once said while they were stretching after a practice. These conversations helped Jamal see that he was not alone in his struggle. However, the emotional challenges continued. Jamal felt the pressure of expectations, especially with the friendly match approaching. The fear of failing and being ridiculed still haunted his mind. One night, while trying to sleep, he got up and decided to write in his journal. He put his anxieties, fears, and hopes down on paper. Writing became a relief, a way to process everything he felt. He realized that expressing his emotions was as important as working on his basketball skills. On the day of the friendly match, Jamal was nervous, but also excited. He remembered everything he had learned over the past few weeks. When he stepped onto the court, adrenaline coursed through his veins. He looked at the faces of his teammates who were supporting him. The game began, and even though he made mistakes, Jamal forced himself to keep his head up. He made successful passes, defended with determination, and eventually made a successful shot. The applause from his teammates and the excitement from the crowd filled him with a joy he had never felt before. At the end of the game, regardless of the outcome, Jamal knew he had overcome a huge internal obstacle. He had not only played, he had asserted himself as part of the team. As he left the court, he felt that a new chapter in his life had begun, and he was ready to face it, one step at a time. The morning after the friendly match, Jamal woke up with a renewed feeling. The sun was still shining, but now it seemed brighter, as if reflecting the new light he had found within himself. He got up and, looking in the mirror, saw a more confident young man. The feeling of having faced his fears on the court still pulsed inside him. He had learned that even in the face of difficulties, it was possible to rise and keep trying. Upon arriving at school, Jamal noticed that the looks that had once made him feel insecure were now different. Many of his classmates greeted him with smiles, and some even stopped to compliment him on his performance in the game. Lucas, who had previously been his biggest critic, now seemed more restrained. Jamal realized that the change in his attitude also reflected a change in how others viewed him. He was no longer just the rookie, he had become an active member of the team. Weeks passed, and Jamal continued to train with determination. He began to feel more comfortable in his own skin. The mistakes that had once discouraged him were now seen as learning opportunities. During one practice, he missed a shot again, but instead of letting it get him down, he laughed at himself and focused on the next attempt. This lightness regarding mistakes began to spread to the other players, who started to support him more and share their own failures. Jamal realized that they were all in this journey together, and this created a stronger bond between them. With the help of Raphael and the conversations they had, he learned to accept constructive criticism and to be open to feedback from others. One day, while talking after practice, Raphael said it was good to see that he was learning to have fun playing. Basketball should be something he loves, not just a pressure to stand out. These words resonated deeply with Jamal. He began to see basketball not just as a competition, but as a passion. This changed his perspective and helped him relax during games. Besides his growth in basketball, Jamal started to apply the lessons he learned in other areas of his life. He became kinder and more understanding towards others, especially those who were going through tough times. One day during science class, he noticed a classmate who used to be isolated was struggling with a project. Jamal decided to offer his help. This small action not only helped his classmate, but also made Jamal feel good about himself. He realized that true success was not just about winning games, but about making a difference in the lives of those around him. His friendship with Emily also blossomed. They began to spend more time together, talking about their aspirations and challenges. Jamal felt comfortable sharing his insecurities with her, and Emily always had something encouraging to say. The connection they had strengthened, and Jamal realized that having someone to share his experiences made the journey much lighter. This friendship helped him see the importance of emotional support, something he had never valued before. The challenges were still present, but Jamal now faced them in a different way. He began to see each difficulty as a chance to strengthen himself. When a new tournament was announced, he felt anxiety rise again, but instead of letting it overwhelm him, he decided to prepare mentally. He made a list of his achievements since he started training and revisited his journal notes. This reflection exercise helped him focus on the progress he had made, and he felt ready to face whatever came his way. On the day of the tournament, as he entered the court, Jamal was nervous but also excited. He looked at his teammates who were by his side and felt that he was not alone. Together they formed a team, a family. The game started, and despite some mistakes, Jamal played with heart. He remembered everything he had learned, the importance of failing, the beauty of rising again, and the strength that comes from friendship and mutual support. When the final whistle blew, Jamal knew he had given his best, regardless of the outcome. He felt fulfilled, not because he had won, but because he had surpassed himself. Looking at the faces of his teammates, he saw not just teammates, but friends who had helped him grow. Jamal realized that true success was in becoming a better version of himself and valuing those who were by his side. And with a smile on his face, he knew that this journey was just beginning. The day of the tournament finally arrived, and the court was filled with cheering fans. Jamal felt his anxiety grow, but this time, he knew he was not alone. He looked around and saw his teammates, all with expressions of determination and support. They gathered in the center of the court, forming a circle. Raphael said a brief prayer, asking for focus and unity. Jamal felt his heart race, but also a wave of courage. When the game began, emotions ran high. Jamal felt the adrenaline coursing through his body as the ball was passed from player to player. However, early on, a mistake caught him off guard. He missed an opportunity for a free throw. Frustration took over, and for a moment, he felt that all the confidence he had built was crumbling. But looking at the encouraging faces of his friends, he remembered the lessons he had learned. He took a deep breath, picked himself up, and focused on the game. The challenge intensified as the opponent showed its strength. Jamal realized that the pressure was mounting and that his team needed him. He remembered Raphael saying that basketball was about fun, not just about winning. This new perspective gave him the clarity he needed. The game was not just about his individual performance, it was about the team. He decided he would enjoy every moment, regardless of the outcome. With a lighter mind, Jamal began to move with more confidence. He made a perfect assist to Lucas, who shot and scored. The team cheered, and at that moment, Jamal realized that his contribution was just as valuable as any point he could make. He felt part of something bigger. The game continued, and each time he passed the ball or helped on defense, he felt more connected to his teammates. The laughter and shouts of encouragement only fueled his motivation. However, the game took an unexpected turn. With just a few minutes left, the opposing team was only 1 point ahead. The pressure mounted, and Jamal felt his heart race again. He knew he needed to step up, not just to score, but to make a difference. And it was in that decisive moment that the worst happened. A stronger opponent pushed him during a shot. Jamal fell to the ground, the pain of the fall mixing with the frustration of missing the chance to score. He was on the floor, the court spinning around him, and the crowd fell silent. But something changed inside him. He remembered all the times he had gotten back up, how he had learned not to give up. With effort, he stood up, shaking the dust off his uniform. Jamal looked at his friends on the sidelines. They were encouraging him with supportive looks. He felt a wave of determination. The game was not over yet, and he had a chance to redeem himself. With a new focus, Jamal positioned himself again. The ball was passed to him, and with all the energy he could gather, he shot. Time seemed to slow down as the ball went up and came down, and to his joy, the ball went through the net. The court erupted in cheers. Jamal felt euphoria wash over him. It was in that split second that he realized true success was not just in winning, but in having the courage to get back up and try again. The game ended with a narrow victory. Jamal's teammates ran to him and lifted him on their shoulders, celebrating not just the win, but the journey they had taken together. Jamal felt tears of joy streaming down his face. He looked at the crowd and saw Emily, with a radiant smile, cheering enthusiastically. The friendship they had grown solidified in that moment. He now understood that mutual support was essential, and that his journey was not just individual but shared. In that instant, Jamal knew he had overcome his greatest challenge. He had learned the importance of getting back up after a fall, valuing friendships and finding joy in the process, not just in the outcome. The true triumph was in his transformation, in how he now viewed life. Basketball was more than a game. It was a metaphor for life, filled with ups and downs, but always with the opportunity to start over. And with a heart full of gratitude, he knew this was just one of many victories that were yet to come. After the final whistle of the match, the court still reverberated with the echoes of victory. Jamal, now on the shoulders of his teammates, felt a mix of euphoria and relief. The world around him seemed to shine in a different way. The crowd, which had been nervous and silent before, now exploded in applause and shouts of happiness. The adrenaline still pulsed through his veins, but more importantly, The feeling of belonging and overcoming surrounded him like a warm blanket on a cold day. Coming down from Lucas's shoulders was a symbolic moment. Jamal found himself surrounded by his friends, all with wide smiles and open arms. He exchanged hugs with each of them, feeling the connection that had strengthened during the game. Raphael shouted, "You shot like a champion, Jamal," patting him on the back. "You didn't give up, and that made all the difference." Jamal smiled, but felt a pang of emotion as he remembered the moment he fell. He had almost let frustration overcome him, but the memory of his friends' support made him realize there was something much bigger at stake. "I couldn't have done it without you guys. Every assist, every defense, all of this was part of our effort," he responded sincerely. As they walked away from the court, Jamal spotted Emily in the crowd. She was radiant, with a smile that lit up her face. When their eyes met, Emily waved, and Jamal felt his heart race once more. He ran to her, and as he got closer, she enveloped him in a tight hug. "You were amazing. I'm so proud of you," she said, her eyes sparkling with emotion. "Thank you, Emily. You were there the whole time cheering for me. That meant a lot," Jamal replied, feeling grateful. He realized it was not just the victory that made him happy, but the support and presence of people who cared about him. In that moment, as they talked, Jamal reflected on what really mattered. He had learned that losses were not the end, but rather part of the journey. Every mistake, every fall was an opportunity to grow. And, more importantly, he understood that the support of friends and family was what made this journey meaningful. In the days that followed, the victory in the tournament became a frequent topic among friends. They gathered to practice together, laughing and having fun, and each shared their own experiences and challenges. Jamal began to realize that his role on the team was more than just that of a player. He had become a true leader. He encouraged his teammates to get back up after mistakes, just as he had done, and started to understand that each person had something unique to offer. In one of the post-game meetings, while everyone was sitting around the table, Raphael raised a glass and said, "Victory is sweet, but what we experience together is even more special. Jamal, you showed us that courage and unity are what make us a team. May we always remember this no matter what happens." Everyone toasted, and Jamal felt a wave of gratitude. He knew he was surrounded by people who not only played with him, but also cared deeply. That day on his way home, Jamal reflected on the journey he had made. He remembered every step, every fall, and every rise. Life, just like basketball, was full of challenges. But now he knew he had the strength and support needed to face anything that came his way. He was ready for the upcoming challenges, not just in sports, but in life. Jamal looked out the window as the city passed by. He smiled, thinking of the future victories and the lessons he would still learn. Basketball had become more than just a game. It was an expression of his journey, filled with friendship, courage, and the certainty that together they could face any adversity. Jamal couldn't help but smile as he reflected on his journey. The victory in the tournament was more than just a trophy. It was a testament to his growth and the lessons he had learned along the way. Every mistake made, every fall that nearly made him give up, became steps towards something greater. He had learned that in basketball and in life. True strength was not in never failing, but in always getting back up. With the support of his friends, Jamal had become a leader. He not only stood out as a player, but also as someone who inspired others to believe in themselves. The group conversations became moments of reflection and learning, where everyone shared their struggles and achievements. Jamal discovered that friendship was the foundation of the team. They supported each other, celebrating victories and learning from defeats. The sense of belonging he felt now was unmatched. One night, while everyone was gathered for another practice, Jamal noticed a new energy in the air. Laughter and camaraderie united them in a way he had never imagined. "Let's do something different today," he suggested, with a sparkle in his eyes. "Let's pair up and practice plays, but for every mistake, instead of getting discouraged, let's celebrate the learning." The idea was met with enthusiasm. Jamal felt he was promoting not just a practice, but a philosophy of life. In the following weeks, the team continued to grow, and their bond strengthened. With each game, confidence increased, and victory seemed closer. But not everything was easy. In a decisive game against a rival team that had defeated Jamal and his friends in the past, the tension was palpable. During the match, Jamal made a crucial mistake that almost cost them the victory. Frustration overwhelmed him, but he remembered the supportive words of his friends. Instead of letting it bring him down, he looked to the stands. and saw Emily cheering him on, which invigorated him. In that moment, Jamal decided he wouldn't let the fear of failure control him. He stood up and with determination began to play with heart. Together, his friends rallied, and in a final play, Jamal made the basket that secured the victory. The court exploded in celebration, but what truly mattered to him was the recognition of his personal growth. After the game, as the team embraced, Jamal realized he had become a better version of himself. He had not only overcome his fears, but had also learned that true victory lies in facing challenges with courage and unity. The journey was not just about winning trophies, but about building friendships that would last forever. Now, looking to the future, Jamal knew that every step taken, every fall, and every rise had shaped him. He was ready to face new battles, not just in basketball, but in life. With a heart full of gratitude, he understood that true wealth was in the experiences lived and the lessons learned along the way. And so, Jamal invited everyone to reflect on their own journeys. Never underestimate the power of friends' support and the lessons that each challenge can bring. Share your experiences and let's celebrate our victories and learnings together. He smiled, knowing that by opening up to others, he was creating a space for everyone to grow. Liking and subscribing to the channel is an important step so we can continue this conversation. Let's build a community where everyone feels encouraged to rise up and fight for their dreams.